Good morning. We are going to be in Matthew 24 this morning. If you want to get out your Bibles and turn to Matthew 24. While you're doing that, I will reiterate what was said in the announcements, that we have a gospel meeting coming up. Hopefully everybody has prepared yourselves, put it on your calendar, and is able to make time to be here. Sadly, I won't be. I'll be up in North Alabama doing a gospel meeting up there at the same time, so I will miss being here, and I'm really kind of bummed out about that, but we couldn't really adjust the schedules. It was too late whenever I noticed it. So I won't be here, but I hope you are, and I'll be tuning in and watching online, and especially for the song training, the singing training that'll be Sunday afternoon. I don't know if it'll be part of the PM sermon. It may be right before the PM sermon, and that's going to be congregational training for all of us to learn how to sing the different parts, and I wish I was here for that. I wish I could just pick his brain on song leading as well, because he knows exactly what he's talking about. But if you are going to be here in this area, be sure to come. And the more people we have for that, the more encouraging that's going to be, and the more encouraging all of our singing will be going forward. So this is the time to be trained on how to sing. Even if you know how to sing, come to lift everybody up who needs training as well. Okay. All right, so we're going to be studying from Matthew 25 tonight. I said 24, didn't I? 25 today. So turn over to chapter 25. We've studied through Matthew 24 together, and now we'll work our way through chapter 25. And as we come to this chapter, I want us to think a little bit about procrastination. How many of us are procrastinators? How many of us tend to put off for tomorrow what we could very easily do today? I think that's pretty common. I think we, in general, are very lazy people who do not take the time to do the things that we need to do, and don't take the time to do our very best at the things that we have to do. We just kind of rush along and get it done at the last minute because we're too busy, whenever in fact we're probably just distracting ourselves with things that aren't important. But that's the way it is. That's how our life is right now. Our quality of work suffers from this. But hey, we get it done. You know, we might procrastinate. We might do less of a job than we could do, but we get it done. So get off of our back is kind of the attitude that we have. This is a very dangerous kind of attitude, and hopefully not many of you have that going on in every area of your life, but certainly I think all of us have been affected by this attitude or had this attitude at some stage in our lives. I know we got some very diligent workers here who probably don't procrastinate at all, but some of us struggle with that. And I want to think about what we're going to be talking about today and considering is, what does that look like in the spiritual world? What does it look like for us to procrastinate in our spiritual work that we're involved in? And this is what Jesus is going to be talking to us about as we study Matthew chapter 25, is the idea of putting off the things that God has given us to do because we don't care that much. And so we're going to be studying this morning. Is a very powerful idea in this parable that we're going to be studying, and I've learned a lot from it. I hope you will as well. It's important for us to consider the context always. I try to do that. And as we come into chapter 25, I want us to understand that this is not a new situation. We're not reading a new speech that Jesus is giving that's different from and at a different time than chapter 24. This is all connected. He didn't move locations. Nothing has changed. This is a continuation of the same words that we read before. Sometimes whenever we see chapter 25, we tend to think, okay, now we're reading this separate from the last chapter, but this is all the same. And so Jesus has not stopped talking. This is not another speech. And he's been telling them about the destruction of Jerusalem, going back to the beginning of chapter 24. That's what they're asking about. When will these things be? What is the sign of your coming in the end of the age or the end of the era? And he has let them know all kinds of signs to let them know in general when these things will be. But he has not given them and will not give them a specific timeline of events or an exact date when all of these things will take place. But he tells them at the end of chapter 24, you better be ready. Because when I come in judgment, it will be like a thief in the night. The Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not expect. And when the master comes home and finds his slaves beating other slaves instead of feeding them like they're supposed to do, he will bring judgment against them. And verse 51 tells us, he will cut him in pieces and put him with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Jesus, you're not supposed to say you're going to cut people in pieces, right? I mean, that is not the picture we have of Jesus. It's all rainbows and unicorns with Jesus. So surely Jesus isn't going to cut people in pieces. Well, that's what he says is going to happen when he comes in judgment. It's not a funny thing or a happy thing. It's a scary thing and something to be aware of and to be taking special note of, that when Jesus comes, he will bring judgment, a reason to be prepared. In chapter 25, verse 1, Naomi, stop. Joseph, stop. Sorry. In chapter 25, verse 1, it says, then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. Chapter 25, verse 1 sets up the whole parable by saying, then the kingdom of heaven will be like. Now, we've heard that before, haven't we? I mean, the kingdom of heaven will be like is a very common start to all of his parables. But here he says, then the kingdom of heaven will be like. So when is he talking about? He's talking about when he comes in judgment. Okay? When he comes in judgment, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. What does this mean? What is he talking about here? 10 virgins who go and meet a bridegroom? That's not our terminology, is it? We don't talk like that. We don't talk about people being virgins even. I mean, this is kind of uncomfortable. But this is the way they would talk about bridesmaids. And the work that a bridesmaid might do is going out to light the way for the bridegroom. These bridesmaids have lamps, and they're taking them out to meet the bridegroom. And so it's kind of a picture of a wedding is about to take place. A wedding feast is about to take place. And these bridesmaids are going out to prepare the way for the bridegroom. And he says in verse 2, 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. And he explains what that means. He says, for when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. But the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. So the kingdom of heaven will be like this scenario when Jesus is coming, when he's on his way, when he's about to be here. That it'll be like 10 virgins going out to meet a bridegroom, and they take their lamps, and 5 of them are wise and 5 of them foolish. So this is the situation that he's trying to describe to help them understand the idea that when he comes, they need to be ready. They need to be prepared. Back in chapter 24, verse 45, he asked the question, who then is the faithful and wise servant? This is what he's calling for his disciples to be, is faithful and wise. And he wants them to understand that when he comes, they should be found acting in a way that shows great wisdom. And so he's paralleling it to this work that was mentioned earlier and telling them a parable to help them grasp these concepts and to help them understand that he will come at an unexpected hour. Listen to verse 5. It says, as the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and slept. But at midnight, there was a cry. Here is the bridegroom. Come out to meet him. I mean, who expects a bridegroom to come showing up at midnight and expects to have to do their work at midnight? And this is the picture, that the bridegroom comes at an hour you do not expect him to come. And so they start making their preparations. Verse 7, then all those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. Now, what does that mean? Why are they trimming lamps? We're not familiar with this, right? Lamps to us are like little lanterns that have LED lights and batteries inside, right? So that's what we're like. What is that about? Maybe in our terminology, they arose and they replaced their batteries because they saw that the battery marker was low. I mean, that's what we would think. But the idea of a lamp is that it would have all this oil and a wick that goes down into the oil, and that wick is soaking up the oil and bringing it up to the top, where it's exposed, where there's air, and that is on fire, that provides the light. And it would burn, and there would be extra that would be hanging off. And if there's extra that's burning that's been already charred, there would be smoke. The light would be dim. And so by trimming their lamps and trimming their wicks, the light is allowed the fire is allowed to burn purely and brightly. And so they trim their lamps to make it burn even brighter. But notice, as they all get up to do that, verse 8, the foolish said to the wise, give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, since there will not be enough for us and for you, go rather to the dealers and buy for yourselves. So these foolish virgins did not expect the bridegroom to come at midnight. Who would have? And they didn't bring any spare oil to allow for him to come at that late hour. And so they've run out, and they go to these wise and they say, can you spare some oil for us? We're running out. We're not going to have enough to fulfill this task that we've been given. And the wise say, if we gave you some, then we wouldn't have any. So they say no. They say, instead, why don't you go to the retailers and why don't you go buy some oil and try to come back here? He's not here yet, obviously. Go get some oil and come back here, and maybe you can make it in time. Now, does that sound smart at midnight to go to the store and go buy some oil at that time? No. Like, what are the odds that the store maker is going to be there? Like 0. So it's really kind of a far-fetched thing, and they're at a time when they are very unlikely to get the oil they need in order to fulfill their task. And yet, they're going to go and try to do that. That's what they do. They go and they try to get some oil to buy for themselves. And verse 10 tells us, while they were gone to buy, the bridegroom came. And those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterward, the other virgins came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered, truly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. It's kind of interesting how this all plays out. It starts with the wise fulfilling their job and the bridegroom allowing them to come into the wedding feast and enjoy the feast. But it says at the end of verse 10, the door was shut. It's a very ominous idea, right? That door was shut. They didn't leave the door open for as many who wanted to come into the wedding feast as could. And so whenever these foolish bridesmaids, virgins, came, they had already missed their task. They had already missed the bridegroom. And they find out, well, the wise were able to go in and they were able to enjoy the marriage feast. Maybe we can. But that door was shut. Can you imagine pleading outside? Lord, Lord, please open to us. Can you imagine? They've done everything that they thought they would need to do, in order to serve him, and they just made a little mistake. They had their wedding garments on, they had their lamps, they had some oil. They were out there at midnight sleeping, waiting for him. And here they are outside pleading, Lord, open to us. But they're rejected. They thought they did enough. They thought they had done enough. They thought they deserved to be there. But they weren't allowed in. And then they hear these words come from the bridegroom. Truly I say to you, I do not know you. I don't know you. That's insane, right? I mean, that they would not be allowed to come in, and the bridegroom would say, I don't know you, therefore you're not allowed. This is a closed event. You had your chance to meet me, you had your chance to serve me, and you fell short of what you were supposed to do, and you missed out on this opportunity. This is insane. How could they miss out after all that they've done? Why are they outside? Why are they not allowed in? They deserve it too. They've done stuff. But they didn't value the word like the wise. They didn't put in a lot of time and effort in preparation and thinking about the possibilities. That things might happen and that might require a little bit more diligence, a little bit more effort. That I might need to work a little bit more in order to afford a little bit more oil and a flask in order to bring it with me in the event that the bridegroom is delayed. They didn't value that work, that opportunity that was given to them to work for the bridegroom, and that opportunity that was given to them to come into the marriage feast and enjoy the festivities. If you were in that culture, the marriage feast was a week-long celebration. Okay? This was a main event in their society. Everybody would want to be in that. And they didn't value it enough to spend the extra time that was needed to prepare themselves for the bridegroom's delay. They only did enough work to get by. That's it. Just enough to get by. Have you ever done this? Oh, man. As I hear this story, I'm constantly being reminded of school. I mean, it's just like every nightmare of school, like coming in, right? I am one of those kids who asked my parents for poster board the night before the science fair, right before bedtime. I am one of those kids. So I am very aware of the idea of procrastinating and not valuing the work and not valuing the opportunity and just trying to do enough to get by. And whenever I saw other kids doing those same things, and they would show up without anything on the day something was due, there would just be this sinking feeling inside of me knowing how they felt. It doesn't feel good, does it? You probably know what that's like. But at the same time, there's kind of this, it'll be okay, right? I mean, we know our teachers are just pushovers. They're gonna give us something to make up for it. Maybe we'll have to work a lot harder in order to make up for it, but they're going to do something. They're going to allow us to finish and to get a good grade and to at least pass the class. Like, that's the way we think, and that's our mentality because of the way school is. That's not what the bridegroom does. This isn't school. You miss the deadline, you miss the feast. He will not open the door for those whom he does not know. They had an opportunity. They had plenty of opportunities. and they missed. And they will live with regret forever. The judgment here, I don't know you, is very important and very telling. When the master comes, he knows those who served him. He knows those who were prepared for the opportunities that he gave them and who fulfilled that opportunity. It may not sound fair to us that he would say, I don't know you. It may not sound fair to us that he would bring judgment against people who have got lamps and they've got oil and they've got clothing and everything to prepare themselves for the wedding feast. But you know what? He can do what he wants. It's his feast. He gets to decide who comes in and who does not. And so, as we hear these words, hopefully we understand the ideas that are being talked about here. That Jesus is saying, very similar to what he said before, that when the master comes, will he find wise and faithful servants? Or will he find servants who are off doing what they want to do and neglecting the work he's given them to do? You might ask, why is he being so unmerciful? It's just not fair. But he's been merciful. He's been gracious. He's given them the lamps. He's given them the opportunity. He's given them everything they need to accomplish their task. But there's no relationship. There's no relationship. He knows those who serve him with their hearts. And he knows those who do not. Have I hit on this enough? Do you see what the message is? For the disciples, the message is they need to stay prepared all the time. They need to be serving all the time. They need to be constantly looking forward to the opportunity that has been given to them. And they need to be seeing every work as a chance to fill their flasks with oil so that they can light the way for the bridegroom. We know tremendous mercy and patience are available to everybody. Everybody has tremendous mercy and patience. If you're here today and you feel as though you've not been doing enough for the Lord, there's tremendous mercy and patience for you. And there's been mercy and patience that's been available all along. But what this tells us is mercy and patience have an expiration date that we don't know about. We can't plan for that expiration date and do whatever we want to do until right before that date and get all of our cards lined up and then be here, be ready. That's not the way it works. He says you don't know the day or the hour when the Lord will come. And he's telling his disciples that before the judgment day of Jerusalem comes, but it's as simple to relate that to our judgment day, and it's as simple to relate that to our death. It's simple and easy to apply this to ourselves. We are these bridesmaids. We all have lamps that were given to us. We have different roles. Maybe your lamp is teaching and preaching the gospel as the disciples did. Maybe your lamp is visiting the sick and sitting beside the elderly. Maybe your lamp is doing some minuscule task that nobody wants to do, but that you're willing to do. You've all got lamps. And we've all got the opportunity to join Christ and God in the marriage feast, and we actually are the bride of Christ. We got an invitation. We have accepted it, hopefully. If you haven't, you can today. And you can be a part of the most tremendous feast that we have ever known. This is bigger than anything we could ever imagine. This is an eternal marriage feast put on by God himself for those who love him. And it's available to everybody. Doesn't matter what you've done. Doesn't matter how awful you've been or all the mistakes you've made up until this point. You have the opportunity to be a part of that feast. And God's given you a lamp to fill up with oil. And we need to have flasks ready that have more oil. And that idea of oil is the idea of zeal and passion and desire to serve the Lord with all our hearts and with all our souls and with all our might and with all our strength. That's the oil that lights the fire. And if we're all out of oil and the Lord comes, we're in trouble. We have tremendous opportunities given to us. What are we going to do with them? Have our hearts been transformed by the grace of God? Have we been doing what we should do to be ready for the judgment day? Does he know your name? Because you serve him and you're ready for his return. If you don't know Christ, if you don't understand the amount of devotion and dedication he calls you to, I want you to right now thank God for the breath you have in you. Because that breath is the opportunity to turn it around before it's too late. Because when you're done, you're done. Don't go up saying, Lord, Lord, please, 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 I'm so sorry. You had your chance. He's not the pushover teacher. You can't fix it. Now's the time. Devote yourself to him, and you can enjoy all those spiritual blessings that he offers to you. Don't say that he's not coming tomorrow, so I can slack off today. Don't do it. Say he could come at any time, any hour, or I could die at any time or any hour, and I better remain faithful, and I better be doing all that I can to serve him every single day. As I read these words and study this text, it hits me as hard as it hits you. And the procrastinator side of me needs to take note and make changes in my schedules and make changes in my way of life to open up the time that is needed to serve the Lord faithfully, to read his word, to love the brethren, to love the lost, to shine a light. If you're here this morning and you haven't been doing that, we want to encourage you to do that now. Make that change, and if there's anything we can do to help you, we want to do it. Because we don't want anybody to be out of oil. We want everybody's lights to be shining bright, preparing the way for the Lord to come. And if there's something we can do to help you this morning, will you please, please, please let us know and let us help you. Please come forward as we stand and as we sing.